Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Camera Tuesday, we're gonna talk about most hyped camera, Sony A7 Mark IV. So let's dive right into it. Now it's basically King is back. Now why is such a big deal? Well, reality is A7 Mark III made Sony mirrorless into real thing. What does that mean? That simply means professional, meaning people who are getting paid to be a photographer, they started to use Sony equipment. You have to understand that Canon and Nikon, they are almost got tier in this photography space. They've been there for almost a century. To give you a context of like how old their history is. So any third-party company, be it Fuji, be it Leica, be it it's like Leica was big, but then they started to become luxury camera rather than mass production camera. So and same goes with Hasselblad and things of all that nature. So only Nikon and Canon is quote-unquote photo companies. Basically, what do you make? We make cameras. So that was a very significant thing. Now in that over competitive industry, which is losing directly because of smartphones, this company comes along, it's like, how about me? So that is a very, very important thing, that in such a competitive shrinking market, this company comes along and everybody's like, whoa, 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 what do you mean in $2,000 we can have this much horsepower? Now again, it had issues, and I do not mean issues as in like, you may be like, oh, you are expecting too much. No, I'm not talking about issues as in like, oh, it could not do 120 fps 4K. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about their user interface. That was really garbage, and I mean really, really freaking garbage. Compared to my older DSLRs, it had garbage user interface. So it had limitations, but reality was, while if you are able to work with all those things, it was superbly performant and very capable. In right hands, it actually started to make a profit for Sony. So it was a very big deal, and that was launched in April 2018, as in like reached the market, and now Sony is claiming in December 2021 this is gonna happen. I am like, no, it's not gonna happen. If you are very lucky, it was gonna happen in January 2022, because most of the supply chain has been disrupted. So realistic, that's the endpoint. So you can understand Sony took 3 years to release this new update. So what did they fix? Here's another aspect of it. Sony as a technological company, they are GG. Like, you don't talk about them, like they are on a different level. To give you a context, they made multiple medias, and they made multiple media successful. For example, they made PlayStation, they made Blu-ray, as in like a physical media, they made it and made it successful. Now of course they also had a boatload of failure, like Betamax and Magic Gate. Yes, there was a product known as Magic Gate made by Sony, look it up. So reality is like, they know in terms of technology. So problem with A7 Mark III was not in terms of, oh, it could not do this. It was like, dude, who wrote the programming interface? It was really, really bad. So this time all Sony had to do is listen to the customer. It's like, hey, you are paying me money, so let me give you my ear and tell me, let me listen to you. What exactly do you want? So they listen to almost everything. First, flip out screen. Awesome, GG. At this point I was like, I don't want flip out screen. Here's the deal, it's not gonna harm you. Let me be very clear. If your photographer is like, I don't want flip out screen, here's the, fold it up and put a glue there. Don't ever think about it. It's like, it's not gonna harm you. But videographers love this. Like, this was a primary reason why I bought Canon 800D compared to Sony Alpha cameras. They were like APS-C. I was thinking about that, but it did not have flip out screen. I need flip out screen, so they added that. On top of that, people were like 24 megapixel GG for 2008, but now we want a bit more love. They're like, okay, 33 megapixel, which is good. Now autofocus on Sony was really good for that time. However, in that time, Nikon has kind of slipped back. Like Nikon DSLR autofocus, GG. Nikon's mirrorless autofocus, only now they are starting to release a camera which still has not reached mass production yet, as in like public has it. It has any autofocus that can compare to Sony's A7 III. So they pushed it up, polished it up, meaning as in like in this puppy, older version had 10 fps. This also has 10 fps. But if you use that older version, you will get like, let's say, 6 frames in focus. This puppy can push it to almost 9 frames in focus. So that's the whole point. They polished the autofocus. Now they have human, animal, bird, and it will work in everything, meaning it will work in photos, it will work in video. They will not have any limitations. Now it can do 4K 60 fps, which was not possible. However, 60 fps is at a crop of Super 35, meaning it's like APS-C kind of system. That is a bit problematic, but we'll talk about it further. Now the biggest issue with Sony systems were in the early days is like, people were like, dude, the straight out of the camera footage is not appealing. Sony was trying to do what we call accurate colors rendition. Problem is, you can't really translate real world colors into a low bit rate codec. It will simply not. Physics does not allow that. Like, real world colors have almost infinite variation, and you are like, hey, can you compress that puppy into like R value of 0 to 255? It's not gonna fit. So 8-bit was not enough, so they moved to 10-bit. Now this was first done with A7 S3. Now they are doing with this. So at 10-bit, it has, rather than trying to compress every color gradation into 0 to 255, they are compressing everything to 0 to 1024. That's more, or 1023. That's more than enough gradient, where there's like, now we can actually try to emulate real world thing. Now at this point in time, with 10-bit 4:2, what does that mean? That simply means, if you're complaining that I'm not happy with the color coming out of the camera, is that you don't know how to do color grading, because this camera will no longer be limitation, unless you are trying to do a giant screen projection, meaning like a theater presentation. You will not have an issue with this camera. And be mindful, many people can even do theater, people have done that, like as a B cam and C cam in the systems, people have done that. So the camera will not be a limitation. Now you may have a scenario where it's like, dude, I want like straight off the camera. You may need to fiddle around a bit to fine tune the LUT or profile that you exactly want. But at this point in time, the camera's video output will not be any limiting factor, whereas like, dude, it's not the right color. That problem has been solved. Better viewfinder, better screen. Now again, better screen as compared to Android is garbage, but better. And I am really happy that it no longer has recording limit. Now recording limit was never the fault of companies, it was always the fault of European Union government. They had this weird stupid thing. It's like, if you record less than 30 minutes, we'll not notice it. It's like, it does not exist, it cannot do video. And if you record more than 30, it's a video camera, meaning tax bracket goes up. So Panasonic GH5 was the first company, if which is very popular. They were like, we're just gonna pay the taxes. That was very expensive. Like GH5 was almost the same price as this puppy, around $2,000 at the launch. So they kind of bite the bullet and pay the extra. So I do not blame company to have that treatment, and I'm really happy the moment European Union revoked that law. It's like, okay, that was stupid, let's remove that law. Instantaneously Sony started to remove 30-minute recording limit from every camera they launched afterwards, meaning as cheap as A6100, they're like, no more recording limit. I'm very happy with that. So this puppy also get the no recording limit. And you may be like, what about overheating? Now they have learned a lot from A7 S3. So this puppy also has new thermal body system. Basically they have a good conductor that can dump the heat of the processor into the chassis and stay cool. So this puppy can easily record for many hours without any issue. You will most likely run out of card, or you're gonna run out of battery, but unless you do something crazy, this puppy will not overheat. Now be mindful, if you buy directly out of the box systems, it will overheat, simply because by law there is a requirement that if you have any surface that is acting as a heat sink and is touching human surface, it must not go beyond a certain temperature. So it shuts off itself to protect you. Be mindful, IC can easily work at 99 degrees Celsius, you cannot. So that's why, to protect the user, it has that limitation. So people many times are like, dude, is the product shortening its lifespan? No. It's like how server industry literally tries to run their processor as hard as they can. It's like as high temperature as they can. And it's generally preferred to have elevated temperature but fixed temperature, meaning it's like 70 degrees Celsius. Oh, everything is 70 degrees Celsius, no long 50 70 50 70, like 70 fixed. Awesome. So same thing happens here. So be mindful of that. You have to change that thermal limit, and then please do not try to hold this camera after 2-3 hours. Be mindful, the battery will be drained by that point in time. So there is no overheating, there is no limits of recording system. This is King is back. So what are you actually getting? If you buy this puppy, what are you actually getting? Well, quality of life improvement. Do not think it this way, like you're like, whoa, I went from 24 megapixel to like GG 33 megapixel. It's like, okay, bit better, but not too much. Do not expect like, wow. It's not R series camera, or it's not like A1. It's not gonna be like, whoa. And not to mention, after 24 megapixel we reach what we call point of diminishing return. So you need ludicrously sharp lens, and you need to photograph something ludicrously still to actually truly evaluate the spatial resolution that you can get. So is there a point to buying this camera? Well, absolutely. It has boatload of quality of life improvement, meaning if you buy this camera as a first camera, you will be so pleased compared to past systems. That is awesome. For example, one of the most amazing new addition to this is a proper webcam, meaning there was an actual chip that takes the video file, compresses it into USB protocol, and then dumps it out, meaning your mobile computer will read it as a webcam. It will not read a camera that is trying to do as USB. No, proper USB protocol, which is specifically built for webcams, will be utilized, meaning far more stability. And this can no longer has that weird limitation where other camera companies are like 720p 30 fps, 720p 15 fps. No, full HD at 60 fps. At that point in time, there is almost no streaming service where this puppy will be like holding back you. So this is amazing. And on top of that, Sony had the foresight. Maybe you are, let's say, recording a lecture or something like that, or maybe you want to do video editing of that lecture afterwards. This also does internal recording, meaning if you are streaming this puppy for let's say full HD 60 fps, you can record full HD into the memory, which will be much higher bandwidth. Or you can even record 4K, much higher bandwidth. And you can also do 4K streaming outwards, but it's only 15 FPS, which I think is directly because of chip shortage. But you get the point. Like, that is amazing addition to anybody. Like, for hybrid photographers, especially, think of it this way. Let's say you are booking a client and the client says like, hey, can I do a video call with you? Imagine you are using this sort of camera. They will be like, whoa, what is your webcam? Like, that is amazing. You don't have to buy giant HDMI cables. You don't have to buy weirdly expensive HDMI to USB catchers, and then you have to run weird applications. It's like, plug, done, go home, sweet dreams. So that is amazing. It has actual touchscreen. That's why I specified Sony always had the technology. They just did not had anyone who was like, common public use these products and not like, programmers. So now you have menu that you can touch. And this is one thing that you have to truly respect about Canon. Canon was genuinely light years ahead in terms of user interface compared to every Tom, Dick and Harry. I mean, like, when I bought, like, this is like 4 or 5 years ago, when this Canon 800D, that time I think the competitor was Nikon 5200 or something like that. And it was like, every way Nikon was a bit better. But here's the deal: the moment they showed you the back, you're like, yeah, I'm not touching Nikon. It did not have live preview back then. Back then Canon had that live preview, meaning you can just like, hey, if I'm changing the ISO, my images are getting noisy, like live feedback. It's like simple things, has that. Awesome. So I'm very happy with that. And it also has focus breathing compensation. Now be mindful, the sensor is huge, and because it's downsampling, when I'm saying it's gonna do a focus breathing crop, does not mean you're gonna get it cropped it, then it stretched it, then it's gonna give you the 4K file. No, it's not gonna happen like that. It's gonna give you 1-to-1. So it's gonna do its best to give you a file that is true 4K. You will never have any compromise on top of that, but it's gonna compromise the sharpness that you are getting trying to squeeze 7K to 4K. That part will be compromised, not the 4K part. 4K is like, you're gonna get clean 4K. You don't even have to think about it. Be mindful, this puppy can do 4K at like APS-C crop. So there is more than enough pixels here. You don't have to worry about it. What they're gonna do is like, okay, they will communicate with your G master lenses. Be very mindful of that. So far they have not created profiles that will work with other lenses. I am hopeful they might add that. But that idea is photography lenses generally have idiotically bad focus breathing. And again, yes, it is a fault of the lens, but be mindful, the lenses that do not have that, for example, TV lenses, broadcasting lenses, news gathering lenses, and movie lenses, those are ludicrously expensive. So there is a balance. So for that reason, Sony is like, okay, we're gonna compromise. We're gonna crop in a bit. Now, this only works with G master lenses at this point in time, and it is gonna crop it and you will never notice it. It's mind-bogglingly good. And it also has USB-C powered, which is updated standard. So meaning if you have like latest flagship smartphones, their charger can charge it at high speed. So that will be awesome. All that awesome thing. And this also has full size HDMI, which is super awesome. Meaning if you are like, hey, full HD 60 FPS, good. I want even better. You have full size HDMI cable. And to give you a context for that, micro HDMI cables are really, really bad. Like, for example, so bad that Louis Rossmann was actually doing a live stream using a Sony camera with micro HDMI, and he was trying to repair his electric bicycle's motor, BLDC motor. And it's like, he bumped it, yeah, plug broke. And there are thousands of horror stories like that. It's like, you touch the plug, it's like, done, I'm done. Full size, meaning A, it's physically much stronger. B, it's much cheaper, meaning I can guarantee you, next to you will have at least one HDMI cable. That's my guarantee. If you're watching it on the PC, you have one HDMI cable nearby. So that's the whole point. Amazing thing. Quality of life improvement. And they have an exposure composition knob, which they removed the markings because people are like, dude, I do not use exposure composition, but I want like some other variables to control. Awesome. Sony's like, go YOLO on it. People are like, dude, if it keeps rotating on its own, it's like, okay, we're gonna give you locking. So user feedback. And it also has one slot that you can utilize for basically CFast system. Now if you're gonna utilize CFast, be mindful, due to chip shortage, CFast are not improving as they should. They're still stuck at 160 Gbps. I'm saying 160 GB models. You cannot buy 1 terabyte card, and consequence of that is ludicrously expensive. But if you can afford the price, it does give you benefit being you can dump file from this card to your computer much higher rate, and that is a big enough deal. And if you are doing, let's say, RAW plus JPEG save, this is awesome. Now be mindful, this is a mid-range camera, or low end if you consider Sony itself, but it is a really good save. And if you don't have that, if you are like, hey, I'm not gonna buy something that expensive, you're like, awesome, just buy UHS2 V90 cards. That's the critical aspect. It must be V90, otherwise you will end up in a scenario where camera is like, dude, I can't record to this. So if you have V90, don't think about it. GG. So there are a lot of quality of life, like many small things. Like Somebody figured out the loops on the hooks are like, you know, very rattly. They fixed that also. Let that sink in. They're like, so some engineer was like, dude, what's my job? Yeah, make sure the loops don't rattle too much. So they have fixed a lot, and also it supports a next generation of you know, integrated hot shoe. So lot of quality of life improvement. Now, the first thing people are always going to talk about is like, how does it compare to Canon R6? If they both have almost same price, as in like $2,500. Now, this puppy has much better burst rate. So if you are doing any bird photography, any sports photography, flat out shut up and take, you know, spend your money on Canon. There is no discussion there. It has better rolling shutter performance, so that's also a bit more desired. Now, be mindful, A7 Mark IV does not have very good rolling shutter performance. Does not mean it's useless. It's like, it should have been better, and Sony has simple answer. It's like, to buy a A7 III for that. But that being said, is like, you know, rolling shutter was like a bit kind of like underwhelming, quote unquote. This has better of that. And what Sony truly lacks is quality IBUS. Canon is like, let me show you how IBUS works. So flat out, if you want to do without gimbal shooting, this will be much better for you. There is no discussion. Flat out IBUS is better. And this has a crop in 4K, but the crop is fixed between 30 and 60 fps. That is the biggest difference. So now be mindful, I provided a video down below, and think of this whole frame would be you know, your 4K full HD, and then it's gonna crop a little bit, and the moment you go to, let's say, a little bit of image stabilization, it's gonna crop a little bit more, and it's gonna crop even more. Now, same thing's gonna happen in Sony, but it's the weirdness is that it's gonna not bother you till 30 fps. The moment you go 60 fps, it bothers you. It's not like a resolution thing. So switch may be too frustrating for you, or may not be frustrating for you, but be mindful of that it also does have crop. However, all those things being said, all those good things, it does have some issues. Primary being overheating. Let that sink in. There's a company that made cooling accessories for this puppy. That's how hot this gets, and the reason for that is like Canon engineers selected a methodology of using a insulator design. Awesomeness, you can use it in hot summer. It's not gonna overheat your camera. Side effect, once it internally heats up, it cannot dump it heats outside. It is insulated, meaning you cannot cool it down. So that's why it overheats and it gets trapped in a situation. And people in the first firmwares where they were like, you know, not letting the, you know, they were conservatively using the camera, it was so bad that like, you are like, okay, I'm gonna take photos, okay, switch to video, is like, can't record, it's overheated, already overheated. So be mindful of that. With firmware fixes, they have made it far more tolerable, but it's not a camera that you can close your eyes and rely on. Be mindful of that. If you're in a hot scenario like India and you want to do outdoor daytime shooting, be mindful of that. Then it has micro HDMI. So streaming is, there is no competition. Flat out get Sony for streaming. It has micro HDMI. Like, let that sink in. Like, it's worse than what my very old 800D has. My 800D has mini HDMI. Again, not awesome compared to full, but acceptable. The plug is strong enough and does not break instantaneously the moment you touch it. Much better. But this is like, they went backwards in our technology, so that is really frustrating. It does have 30-minute recording limit, and yes, this camera was launched after European Union revoked the law. They could have easily done that. They did not. They are like, what if we F the customer? So I really don't like it, because you can fix the IBUS issue on Sony. You can't fix the recording limit on this. If you have to need of that, if you don't have a need, awesome, go enjoy, have fun. And it does have low megapixel count for some people who, like, you know, I want high megapixel. They may not be satisfied with this camera. So R6 is a good, actually surprisingly good competition to this. Now, there is a danger with Sony at this point in time. I'm noticing is that Sony is making huge strides in the industry, meaning their market penetration is really good. As in, like, they're actually in a point where they're outselling by Nikon by huge margin and almost touching Canon. That is a huge deal. On top of that, they are becoming, you know, direct official partners for Olympic and many news agencies. And news agencies are the main bread and butter, and most news agencies are using either Nikon or Canon. And even news agencies like, dude, we have invested so much money into Canon system, it's going to take us time to switch over. But the fact that this sort of signing deal is happening means Sony is reaching a point where they're like very comfortable. They're like, no matter what we're gonna release, people are gonna buy it, like how Canon was. Like, and this is really bad, because people start to cripple their equipment for no reason. For example, Canon literally started to release multiple cheap DSLRs, and here's all of them had different battery. Recently I had a broken charger with my you know, Canon DSLR. I looked into Canon's website. It's like, is there a shop near me? There was a one properly registered, you know, verified shop. I went there. It's like, yeah, we don't have this variant, like, you know, EL17, EL15, EL14, EL6, like all of them are the same. They have the two cell topology. They have same milliamp hour. They are just changing it just so the world can have a bit more of e-waste. There was no reason for that. And compare that to Sony. Sony is like, hey, all our full frame has one battery. You don't think about it, just like one battery system for all. It's awesome. Produces less waste, allows you to have far more backup, and allows you to switch from one equipment to another far more efficiently. But that's the whole point. Companies, Canon was like, dude, whatever we're gonna release, people are gonna buy it. They removed center grounding pin from a flash mount, meaning the hot shoe. They're like, what if we tamper with the standard that has been there for freaking 100 years? They did that because it's like, who's gonna care? Like, what other option do you have? They removed 24 frames per second from a camera. It's like, why? My old camera has better. It's like, that was the problem when a company becomes too confident, where it's like, no matter what we're gonna do, people are gonna buy it. Now, Apple can do that because they have cult following. Canon cannot. And I'm very happy that Sony started to come in, and Sony was like, whoa, Canon is like, whoa. We cannot just like, crutch on the fact that, hey, we have a cinema line. You want more than 30-minute recording, go to there. It's like, dude, I just want to remove that limit, and law has been removed for 2 years. So I'm happy that I can guarantee you R3 would have had recording limit if Sony was not this good. So that's why you want competition. But Sony is starting to do the same thing now. For example, this processor unit, Bionics XR processor unit, and they are using dual processor. It has been used in 3 cameras: A7S III, A1 Alpha 1, and this puppy, A7 Mark IV. Now this puppy is powerful, meaning this puppy can read a 50 megapixel sensor and give you almost uncompressed RAW at around 20 FPS. There is no way in hell this processor is the limiting factor, and why the heck you are like, hey, we are only giving you 10 FPS. That's a direct demonstration. It's like, who cares? It's like, we're gonna compromise it. It's like, that's directly, they have the horsepower, and they limited it. And you may be like, okay, the physical shutter may not be robust enough, because Canon does know how to make shutters. They have been making for 50 years longer than Sony. I grant you that, but here's the, open the shutter, go to electronic mode. This puppy has more than enough horsepower. The sensor is fast enough, because again, ask anybody who deals with a high-speed camera. Sensor is never the limit, it's the processor that has to be on the behind. This processor is powerful enough. Then same goes for 4K 60 FPS. They could have easily done 4K 60 FPS, because to do 4K, let's assume it takes 1 teraflop. To do 8K, it takes 4 teraflops. No matter what, 30 FPS, if you're doing the same, 10-bit codecs 4:2, is gonna take, 1 teraflop for 4K, 4 teraflops for 8K. That fundamentally means you can double the processing speed. It can be done. They just did not do that whole reason. So A7S III, do not suffer in the sales. And this is the most frightening part for me. It's like Sony is starting to act like Canon. It's like, I want a company to push their equipments, because you do not need 10,000 model. That is really bad for the environment, really bad for the consumer, really bad for the company. It's just that company gets the memo bit late, so they're like, oh, that's why our products are not selling. That's why like Nikon is like, the market industry is shrinking. No, you are releasing garbage. That's why. So this is really scary to me. It's like, I like basically Sony. I want Sony to succeed. I want Canon to succeed, because I know if Sony ever becomes like, the monopoly, they are gonna do the same garbage thing. So I want there to be competition. I want Nikon to be successful, because this sort of thing that you have horsepower and you are limiting, is like 4K 60. What if we, like, you have enough reason to buy this. It can do 120 FPS. Awesome. I'm not expecting 120 on this puppy. So like, I get it. It can still do it, but I'm like, okay, I'm awesome. No problem. But 4K 60 crop was very deliberately done, because people wanted to buy that. People wanted that. So they're like, how about we pick that? So then they can say like, hey, buy this. So this was really, really bad show. It's almost like, how Canon in 70 to 200 millimeter lens, they created a new version. It was like awesome. They changed the hood. I'm like, why? You are not even selling the hood in the box. Why the heck you change the hood? And this happened in Bangalore, as in like India's Silicon Valley, as in like every Tom, Dick and Harry can buy anything. Means there are Lamborghini showrooms, and I went to Canon shops, multiple of them, and they're like, yeah, we don't have this new lens hood, because they changed it. The diameter is the same, the profile is the same. They're like, how about we create more garbage? So that's why this is very dangerous trend I'm seeing in Sony. Now, so far, compared to like as an ethical point of view, they are much better than Canon, but I'm starting to be worried. It's like, maybe if 2 years from now, I'm gonna be like, what the hell Sony is doing? So this was my presentation on Sony A7 Mark IV. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment, because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.